Well, hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining me again. I'm not sure if you recognise this area, but I'm just by St Mary's Church in Eversley. It's a beautiful church over there, steeped in history. Worth looking up and reading if you're interested in that kind of thing. Well, I hadn't intended to stop or start here, depending on which way you look at it, but my scarf wasn't quite lined up and the draft down my neck was a bit cool, because as we know it's a little bit chilly at the moment, despite the few rays of sunshine we can see. And I wanted to do something a bit different today. In this video today I open up about why motorcycling means so much to me. I'll be touching a little bit on grief, personal experiences, and how I first got into riding. It's a little raw, I would say it's unfiltered, but it's a little nomadic. But that's how I roll. So yes, it's nice to be able to share these things with you, so do feel free to climb aboard. There'll be no comparisons or thinking about other motorcycles today, taking a break from that. But yeah, so let's get Vixen started and head out on the open road. So, where to start? Well, most people say to start at the beginning, but I've chosen to start near the end. For me, 2019 was a brutal year. First, my cousin passed away from a heart attack. 6 weeks later, my mother lost her battle with cancer. And just when I thought life might give me a break, 2 months after that, one of my dearest friends also succumbed to cancer. It was a tough season, personally, emotionally, and even professionally. And then, as if the universe wasn't done testing my resilience, along comes COVID, with its lockdowns, uncertainties, and general chaos that affected communities globally. So what was I going to do? Well, it later transpired that the answer was motorcycling. But how did I get there? Well, it kind of all got kicked off at a party in around 2022. I was casually chatting with a friend. We often chat and catch up, and normally it turns to motorbikes. He's been a biker for many years and knows my passion for it, even though I don't have one or didn't have one at the time. I'd passed my test back in '89, but after the late 90s life just took over. And between work, family, and my wife, who wasn't exactly thrilled about me riding, my two-wheel dreams got parked, literally. But as the children grew up and started moving out, the idea of getting back on the road onto two wheels and an engine started creeping back into my mind. Anyway, at the party, once again, my friend and I were chatting bikes. And during the conversation, he suggested that I should check out Royal Enfield's new Classic and Meteor 350s. He said they were great bikes, good value, there was warranty, roadside assistance, and the perfect way to ease myself back in without scaring myself. So, the morning after this particular conversation, something in me changed. I decided I was no longer just going to be conversational about motorbikes or just dream about them, but I really wanted to do something to make it a reality. A few days later, I found myself at Hatfields in Crowthorne. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was handing over some of my hard-earned cash, and then I was rolling out the showroom with Vixen, the name I'd given to my Meteor 350 that I'm riding now. The name made sense, you see, because Vixen is a female fox, and the last three letters of my number plate are VXN. It was like it was meant to be. Now, 3 years and countless miles later, I can honestly say this bike was exactly what I needed. A medicine machine on two wheels, arriving at just the right time after a brutal season. But funnily enough, this wasn't the first time I'd found healing on two wheels. So let's rewind a little to where it all began, when I first discovered the joy of riding and its unexpected ability to help put life back together. Now for this, I'd like to take you all the way back to my childhood in 1970s West London. Like most kids, it was West Ealing, I spent endless hours riding around on my bicycle. Now while the Rally Chopper gets all the nostalgia points these days, there was another legend at the time, I think so anyway, and that was called the Rally Commando, and I had one in bright orange. Now, even as a kid, I was obsessed with motorcycles. At the time, it was just the idea, but they just looked so cool. And the Commando had one magical feature that set it apart. It had a twist grip gear shifter on the right hand, just where the accelerator would be on a motorbike. Now, to my mind, that was basically a throttle. And every time I changed gear, I just imagined myself roaring down the road on a real motorbike. Now for added realism, a classic bit of engineering genius, even if I do say so myself, you take a clothes peg, a playing card, and then you connect it so that the playing card fits into the back spokes of the back wheel, and as the wheel turns and hits the card, suddenly I found I had the growl of an engine, well, in my head at least. So there I was, tearing through the streets of my local part of West London on my orange Commando, twisting the grip like a pro, and the engine rattling away behind me through the card in the spokes. And on a special occasion, a friend we even went out with crash helmets once, actual motorcycle crash helmets. You could imagine that an 8-9-year-old kid just living a dream. It really was great. Now, like many people, my childhood did have some challenges, and I know that I'm not alone in that. But there was one great escape, and that was playing outside with friends. And for me, that invariably always seemed to involve two wheels. But then came a very special moment. My first ride on something with an actual engine. And let me tell you, for all the incredible bikes I've ridden since, nothing has ever matched the sheer magic of that first time. Two wheels, an engine, and the twist of a throttle, and off you go. So after years of dreaming, obsessing and making the vroom vroom noises on my Commando, I finally got my hands on something real. Well, real might be a stretch. It was actually a Pooch Maxi 50cc moped with pedals. It was a legal thing, you had to have pedals on mopeds back then, that you actually could pedal it like a cycle. There was no kickstart, just good old-fashioned leg power. You pedalled it, you pulled a lever, and suddenly, with all the thunderous might of a 2 horsepower 50cc engine, it would splutter into life. I wasn't about to jump over a row of double-decker buses, perhaps, like Evel Knievel, but I was grinning. It was happiness, just being on this thing with an engine. It was almost miraculous, actually. It was quite enjoyable. Now, when I look back, that little Pooch Maxi taught me something important. It doesn't take a high-powered, expensive, fully loaded motorcycle machine to deliver joy. It just needs 2 wheels and an engine. And that's probably why, to this day, I've pretty much enjoyed every single motorcycle I've ever ridden. Now, that same family who introduced me to the Pooch Maxi later gave me my first proper motorcycle experience. It was a Suzuki 185. Now, we called it a scrambler. It might be considered a trials today. But I think, and I can't remember or be sure, but I think it was a DS. And it was orange, a bit like the Commando. But I just say, I can't be sure. But what I know is I finally got to ride a real bike. We went away one weekend, the family took me away. It was my first time away from home, which I loved, and it was my first time on a proper motorbike, which I absolutely loved. And we were staying on this private estate, which meant that I could blast across open fields. And it was just fulfilling every dream I'd ever had about riding. I was only about 10 years old at the time. So yes, childhood had its ups and downs. But I learnt very early that when I was on 2 wheels, whether it was a bicycle with playing cards in the spokes or a Suzuki tearing through a field, every issue or problem or worry I had just faded away. And that for me is where it all truly began. Now let's fast forward a decade or so to the 80s, a time of big hair, questionable fashion choices, and in my case, many life changes. At 15, my parents separated, eventually divorcing. As my 16th birthday approached, in the window of a local newsagent's, I spotted a Yamaha RD50 moped for sale. There was no pedals on this machine. Oh no, this was a proper bike. It had a kickstart, a bench saddle, a speedometer, and, wait for it, a rev counter. To a 16-year-old in the 80s, this was practically a superbike. Sure, everyone talks about the Yamaha Fizzy FS1E these days, a bit like the Chopper, it's got the nostalgic points, but I'd had my heart set on this Yamaha RD50. Now, if anybody's ever asked their parents to buy a moped or a motorbike at that young age, you know that it's typically a no. But obviously times were difficult and things were a bit of a struggle. Well, that kind of played to my advantage, because much to my surprise, when I asked if I could buy it, they both said yes. I was really surprised and shocked, but very, very happy. And just like that, I was taxed, MOT'd, insured, and officially a biker. Okay, maybe biker is a bit of a stretch, more like a guy on a 50cc pretending he was in Easy Rider, but still, I had my own wheels and I was pushing the legal limits of speed for my age at the time. A breathtaking 30 miles per hour, providing I was going downhill with a tailwind at the time. Now, let's be honest. Divorce, separation is difficult for everyone involved. The parents, the children, it's a tough time. And navigating two households while trying to settle into a new college that I'd also recently joined wasn't easy. But my little Yamaha gave me something priceless. It gave me freedom. It didn't matter where I was staying, my mum's or my dad's. I could get to college easily. No relying on public transport. I could visit either one of them when I wished, or if I wanted to, just get out on the open road and just clear my head. It really was magical. And so I found, for the second time in my life, two wheels and an engine weren't just fun, they were true therapy. Who knew that a 50cc's of pure restricted power could be so life-changing? I went everywhere on that Yamaha, whether it was the rain or shine, whether it was summer or winter, hot or cold. I was no fair weather biker back then. I was now an all-weather biker. Now, a few years later, my career took me into technical support. While I was doing this job full-time, I was also studying electronics engineering at college. And it was here at college that I met a group of like-minded motorcycle enthusiasts. Some of them had already passed their tests and were riding some seriously nice machines. Now, in an ideal world, I would have joined them, roaring down the road on my own set of wheels, but life had other plans. You see, I was also in a band playing drums. And if you've ever been a drummer, or know one, you will understand that transporting an entire metal and wood fortress requires something slightly more practical than a motorbike, like, say, a car. Unfortunately, my budget for said car was roughly equivalent to the cost of a sandwich. Well, basically, my options were limited to vehicles that were kind of held together by rust and prayers. So, at the time, bikes were really off the table. But actually, as fate would have it, my car, inevitably, at the price I paid for it, broke down. It broke down spectacularly, actually, and due to the tragic mix of the complexity, the cost, and the mechanical betrayal of this beast, it decided it was going to be off the road for quite some time. It was a bit of a worry, because I was thinking, how am I going to get to work? How am I going to get to college? And most importantly, what about the band? And then, like some kind of two-wheeled guardian angel, someone heard about my predicament and offered to loan me their Honda NTX 125. Just like that. I mean, what are the chances? It was as if the universe had conspired to get me back onto two wheels. And so, yet again, I find motorcycling has come to the rescue. So I was whizzing off to work, commuting to college, and before you ask, what about the drums? Well, by some miracle, the band I was in at the time, the bass player had a room where my drums were always set up. It meant that I didn't have to transport them. I could literally just get myself there on the bike. And as for gigs, well, it was just like band policy. We'd always hire a van, and we'd go together in the van, load up the van. So it was kind of a season where everything worked out. Now, one of my friends from college, who was one of the biker guys who passed his test, he just casually decided, almost without consulting me, to book me in for my Part 1 motorcycle training. He just told me, right, you need to be here at a certain time on Sunday. So I did. I turned up and I did the Part 1 training. It was over several Sundays, and then I passed Part 1, which is what we did back then. And yeah, much to my surprise. Now, I still had the bike, and I wasn't sure how long I was going to have it for. But I basically decided, well, just apply for Part 2. Time was running out with the bike. So I just went for it. And managed to just squeeze in the test, and as luck would have it, I passed first time. And just like that, I was fully bike licensed. As it turned out, not long afterwards, the bike went back to its owner, and due to the whole drums, car and just general life responsibilities thing, and my career went with a company car and I was driving all the time everywhere, my riding on a two-wheeled machine was put on pause. I'd ridden here and there, and friends had loaned me bikes, and I'd have a go at scrambling and all that, but it wasn't until 2022 that I was finally reunited with my medicine machine that just seemed to turn up at absolutely the right time in life. So there you have it, why motorcycling matters to me and how I found healing on two wheels. As a child, it liberated me. It was an escape from the life's challenges that I had at the time. In my teens, it just gave me independence and freedom, particularly during my parents' divorce. When things didn't work out with the car, it rescued me and allowed me to get between the locations of college and work and band practice even. And years later, when life threw many punches, it just seemed to provide healing once again. And now, this time, with my trusty Meteor 350, or as I affectionately call her, Vixen. I hope you enjoyed what you heard today. Do feel free to share your story in the comments. I promise I will read them all. I'd love to hear how motorcycling has helped you. If you like what you hear, do feel free to like. After all, we all need affirmation from strangers on the internet. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts about motorbiking, mindfulness and the odd crappy bit of music, feel free to subscribe. Take care, ride safe, and catch up again soon. Bye for now.